We're at another wild and scenic adventure. So this spring, in the Deschutes National Forest, and within, what is that, 200 yards, it becomes a river.
Out of nothing.
Out of nothing. And we're gonna go kayak it in about 10 minutes here. In this episode, we're going to spend 2 days on rivers and streams that are, or could be, protected under the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act. A little fishing, chasing some waterfalls, then getting the paddles out for some whitewater fun. Along the way, we're going to be checking back in with Erik from Oregon Wild to keep learning about the legacy of wild and scenic rivers. Luckily enough for Kyle and I and all of us, we have inherited that legacy of the Wild and Scenic River Act. That also means we have the opportunity to add to that act, and I believe that opportunity exists right now here in Oregon. Can you tell us a little bit about that opportunity to add rivers and streams to the Wild and Scenic River Act?
It's the most exciting thing we've had in Oregon in a long time. So it's called the River Democracy Act. This was introduced a couple years ago by Senator Ron Wyden, and he really had a vision for protecting Oregon's rivers. Pretty exciting. This would protect rivers across the whole state, some of the most important key rivers for wildlife, for water quality, for climate change, and it would add the Wild and Scenic River designation to those, about 3,200 miles worth of wild and scenic rivers.
Look at this.
What is it?
Might do a little fishing today. I predict that I don't catch a fish. I do predict Matt may catch a fish.
You're not going to catch fish with that attitude.
Oh, Kyle, that's true. It's actually very true, my friend.
How many fish are you going to catch, Matt?
I mean, the goal is 1. So we'll see.
The goal is more than 0.
Yeah.
What percentage of Oregon rivers right now are protected under the current act?
Yeah, you know, here in Oregon we have a really green reputation, one that we don't always live up to very well. So right now we have only protected 2%.
2%?
2%, minuscule, of our rivers as wild and scenic. We should do better. We can do better. Ron Wyden wants to do better. Oregon Wild wants to do better. Most every other Oregonian also wants to do better at protecting our rivers. So the River Democracy Act would scale that up from 2% to 5%.
That seems huge. You're more than doubling the amount of wild and scenic rivers in Oregon right now.
Exactly. So
wow.
It's one of the biggest conservation bills Oregon has had, period.
Wow.
So that's pretty exciting to be able to work on that.
Absolutely.
Great vision for Oregon's rivers, and it really does protect some of the coolest, both literally and figuratively, waters that we have in the state.
Excellent, excellent. How many logs have we crossed, Kyle, so far?
50.
50. Maybe not 50, but a lot.
Yeah. Need to put a little counter in the bottom left corner.
Logs crossed.
Logs crossed. Ding, 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 ding.
Kind of buggy out here.
Yeah. Time to put on the camo.
So they can't see you. Right?
So, it's less about the fish, it's more about the mosquitoes.
Okay, so the mosquitoes can't see
Yeah.
you.
This is pretty. Look at the meadow.
What are you sitting amongst right here?
I don't know. It looks like some sort of like.
Oh, there's a bunch of elk.
This is like an elk wallow. Like this is all elk tracks. Like elk track, elk track, elk track. Mosquitoes are pretty bad, but we're gonna strap it up and we're gonna start fishing right here. And so, before you say, Joe and Matt, why are you guys fishing this tiny mountain stream? Well, first of all, we're up in a beautiful place, right? This is absolutely fantastic. A literal elk pasture up here, right? But the neat thing is that these little tributaries and these little baby trout that we're seeing here actually, under the Wild and Scenic River Act, create gene flow all the way down to the Deschutes River, a blue ribbon trout fishery, right? So let's say one of those trains along the Deschutes River goes off the tracks and kills all the fish, zaps them, and we lose that blue river trout fishery. That river is going to be repopulated from fish up here in the headwaters. As the eggs wash downstream, these small fish up here, when given more food and more access to better habitat, they're going to grow big and they're going to repopulate our downstream really popular fisheries. So protecting headwaters is just as important if you like to fish and fly fish those awesome streams and rivers that are protected under the Wild and Scenic River Act, like the Deschutes. You also want to protect these smaller headwater areas, which is exactly what the Oregon River Democracy Act does.
Yeah, here in Oregon, we've protected some wild and scenic rivers with a half-mile buffer on either side. And that's really significant when you think about all of the forests, the old-growth trees that are in that river corridor. When you're near a river, the trees tend to grow faster, provide better habitat. So we're pretty excited to see that the River Democracy Act has those extra wide buffers, half-mile on either side.
So it sounds like we're gonna possibly more than double the amount of rivers protected, while also, and sometimes, doubling the actual width of the protection.
Exactly.
Very cool. Kyle?
Very cool.
Very cool.
What's a tenkara rod?
So tenkara rod is a Japanese style fishing rod that doesn't have a reel. And so I've actually only done it once, but it's really cool and it's fun on these tight mountain streams. So
What's the reason why there's no reel? What's the purpose?
I think maybe just to simplify the process, and I think not having a reel forces you to move your feet and do shorter drifts. But somebody probably can speak more eloquently on what exactly.
You mean somebody that's done it more than one time?
Yeah, probably.
Joe, how many times have you done it?
If you turn into our Awahi episode coming soon, I've done it one time with Matt's rod and we caught a bass. So one time I caught a bass.
What'd you catch?
Woo!
Got a stick.
You do kind of know how to fish.
I do kind of know how to fish a little bit. There you go, little buddy. I'll put him back in the deep section, huh?
For sure.
Look at that beautiful little fish, huh?
Goodbye.
Nice. Cool. We're fishing here after all. Don't tell Matt. Elk droppings. Seeing lots of sign of elk. We've seen some scat, seen some tracks, and now an elk bed. This is actually probably like last night's bed. Too hot to be in like a day bed, but yeah, this is fresh. So elk pastures, very cool. Another thing, Tumalo Creek and Bridge Creek nearby, this watershed right here, not only does it provide outstanding recreational opportunities for chumps like us, it also provides drinking water to the entire Bend metropolitan area. Tons of values packed into one watershed right here. And of course, this fork and all the forks of Tumalo Creek are also proposed to be designated wild and scenic. Hello. No, we're thinking about it. Look at people out enjoying the day on a beautiful river. Now, if we were to designate this wild and scenic, this could be locked in its current character with its current values forever. How's it going?
Good.
Some people are less stoked than others.
How did you feel about your fishing performance today?
Fishing performance was weak at best, but
Yeah, don't be so hard on yourself.
I had a lot of fun though, and that's really all that matters. I've learned.
Let's see the real winner.
I had more fun than Matt. I would say my fishing exceeded expectations.
Matt got one.
Little brookie.
Good job, Matt.
We were also discussing the term that we've just learned, outstanding remarkable values. So if the Oregon River Democracy Act passes, what's next and when do those outstanding remarkable values apply and how do they apply?
Yeah, so a really key feature to a wild and scenic river designation is what values, outstanding remarkable values, are designated as a part of that river. So those values can be fish, wildlife, scenery, recreation, climate refugia, a variety of botany, all sorts of different things. Mm-hmm. And once those values are selected by the agency with public input, those values can't be degraded. So you can't do logging projects that are going to degrade, say, the scenic value or the wildlife value or the salmon habitat, depending on what the values that are chosen. So it's a really key part of the process. So even once the bill passes, our job isn't done as advocates for rivers. We've still got to make sure that we get as many river outstanding remarkable values selected so that those rivers truly are protected.
So it doesn't end for us Oregonians. I say the collective us. Kyle's an Oregonian. I'm really not. I'm visiting here. It doesn't end there. So the act could pass in the near future. At that point, the agencies in charge of managing those corridors will identify the outstanding remarkable values with our help, correct?
Yep.
And then it's up to us in the future to make sure those agencies and all of us manage the rivers to not degrade those values, correct?
Exactly.
Excellent, excellent. Like birding and kayaking and camping. And what's the list again?
Wild and Scenic River Corridor, you can go hiking, hunting, fishing, camping, rafting, canoeing, kayaking, snowshoeing, cross-country skiing, trail running, and bird watching.
We love it. What a great act. What a great act. Very cool. Sounds like the River Democracy Act is fantastic for paddling bird nerds like Kyle and I, but my guess is, after people like us, there's no support for it here in Oregon, right? It's kind of a niche act, would you say?
Actually, there's a whole lot of support for this. If we did a poll to see how much support there was, part of the way we run a campaign to try to show maximum support. And the poll, not surprisingly, found that 85% of Oregonians want to see more wild and scenic river protections.
85% of Oregonians.
85%. That includes, very notably, 75% of Republicans.
So it has the classic bipartisan support, as you will.
Exactly. I mean, if you look at the history of polls, that ranks up there with potato chips, chocolate, and popcorn. So there you have it. Potato chips, popcorn, chocolate, and the River Democracy Act. Most popular things ever here.
So more people than Kyle and I want wild and scenic rivers and more of them.
who doesn't want clean water? I mean, it's something that we all value, whether you spend all your time out here or you just have to drink water, or if you drink beer. One of the key supporters of this legislation...
Did he say beer?
I'm getting there. So one of the key supporters of this legislation is breweries around Oregon. They get it. Their beer is only as good as the water that goes into their beer. So we have over 50 breweries here in Oregon that have been pushing for stronger protections.
Very cool.
Like the River Democracy Act.
So how have they supported it?
They have nominated rivers, so here in Central Oregon, and in other parts of the state as well, different watersheds, they have nominated their river. That was how this legislation came about. Senator Wyden said, hey, you got a favorite river? Make a suggestion, I'll consider legislation for it. Breweries said, hey, we need clean water for our beer. Please protect that, our river and water sources as wild and scenic.
That's great news, because after we go birding, we like to have a cold beverage from time to time. So we have your organization, we have Senator Wyden, we have 85% of Oregonians, we have Kyle and I. What challenges could there possibly be for this bill? When do we think it might actually be signed?
Yeah, and we have even more support than that. There's 300 plus businesses around the state, mostly in rural areas, that understand the importance of water quality. They've also supported. Here in Central Oregon, we've got school children who have done restoration projects on different streams. They've nominated rivers that would also be protected. So we've got everyone from the breweries to the businesses to the hunters and anglers, the bird watchers, and the school children. I mean, this has to pass.
I think you gotta hug this left bank. It's gonna be weird. Go ahead. Go far left. Really go far left, Kyle, I think. How's the wetsuit treating you?
I'm not even that hot.
How many times have you peed in it? I'm not recording this. How many times?
One time.
No, dude. Don't lie to the camera. How many times? Unreal! Unreal! Also, check out the water clarity here. Thoughts?
Well, that was a good run. We didn't really know what we were getting ourselves into, but it turned out to be a pretty fun paddle.
It was. Good day.
So the challenge is Congress is dysfunctional.
Okay.
And that's a bit of a hurdle.
Wait, what?
Yeah, I know. Newsflash, Congress is dysfunctional. So the way public lands legislation passes these days, you do all your homework, you gather as much support as you can, you make sure your champions, in this case Senator Wyden, are as inspired as possible so that when a window of opportunity in Congress opens, we are collectively ready to move that bill.
Okay.
So you get your bill introduced, you get it through whatever committees you can, and then you're ready. If that window opens for 15 minutes, we get that bill passed.
Awesome. I will say, as somebody who visits Oregon, Senator Wyden's name has come up a couple times in the Oahe Canyonlands we were at. I visited places before in Oregon, like the Oregon coast, which I think is fantastic and beautiful. And I go to the coast and I camp and I find solitude and I spend a lot of money in rural communities. Obviously there was folks who supported those coastal protections. What kind of legacy could this be for Senator Wyden, for my daughter and Kyle's daughter in the future to visit these wild places, these wild and scenic rivers?
I hope that's his legacy. I hope that's a little part of your legacy, a little part of my legacy. But I think if you look at the history of Oregon, you've got Governor Tom McCall, who's renowned to this day for protecting the Oregon coast. Great reputation, great legacy that he has there. You've got Senator Hatfield, who's got his name on everything in Oregon, another big legacy. If Senator Wyden is able to pull this off and pass the River Democracy Act, I think he will be known as the senator who protected Oregon's rivers.
And then I gotta ask, we ask everyone this, personally, why do you do what you do? I'm
happy to be a part of protecting a place like this. You know, it gets me up in the morning. I feel good about what I do at the end of the day, and I'll rally 8 days a week to protect our public lands, and not just for my personal benefit, because I know everybody else values these, and it's important for the next generation, and it's even beyond the people values. I want to see healthy wildlife, and so I want to know that there are wild places out there, even if I never see them. We've got places in the River Democracy Act. I've been to a lot of them, more than my fair share. I've been lucky, but there are a lot I've never been to, and I want those protected too. Some fish calls that home. That's where somebody else gets their drinking water from. I'm going to do my part to try to help them as well.
We applaud you, sir, and Oregon Wild, and all those that are going to support the Oregon River Democracy Act. Thanks, Erik. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Where the Wild Roam is hosted by Joe Flannery.
My grandfather was a park ranger. My parents were both park rangers. I was the third generation. I've been lucky enough to spend my entire life outdoors, learning and working in conservation. And I'm excited to share that knowledge with you.
With Kyle Lancaster.
Lately, we've been getting into conservation filmmaking. We believe that a conservation ethic begins with education and understanding. Never stop learning about the natural world.
And hey, if you like the show, please support, share, subscribe, follow, like, and all that stuff. Let's start a movement that prioritizes wildlife, wild places, and conservation within our daily lives.